Welcome to week 3 of our Parental Alienation series. Andrea and I would like to speak to you this week about undermining the authority of the other parent. Undermining an authority or safe person to a child will destabilize the safety they feel in their world. Every child is different and each has their own personality and curiosity about their world. To develop in natural and healthy ways, a child must be able to individualize out into their own world safely as they ask questions and form understandings. There's a clear line for age-appropriate explanation to questions. However, these answers are never given at the expense of the child or the child's sense of security or safety. That creates an unhealthy attachment and codependent relationship dynamic with the abusive parent and deteriorates the attachment and relationship of the child and target parent. It's a very difficult task to stay emotionally disengaged when your child is demanding answers to uninformed opinions in ways that mimic and sound like the abuser. If you need support to learn new skills to do this, there are groups that we'll link in the taskbar in the description box below, as well as our websites and contact information so that you can book a session and get that support. But we have some great tools that you can use from all kinds of modalities and practitioners that we can connect you with, who fit you, your lifestyle, and your healing journey. And one of the tools that we're discussing today is called holding your ground. After leaving an abusive relationship, we're often rediscovering who we are and what that ground looks and feels like. And it's hard to hold your ground when we have no idea what kind of steps are required to stand on this ground, let alone how we could hold or defend this unknown territory. So then what? What happens after we acknowledge the boundary and refer to the safe space agreement? What about all of the energetic charge that comes with the conversations like these? We choose to diffuse, creating that safe space for the experience, appreciating the struggle for your child, redirecting the energy into the present moment with a connection or a choice that right now requires, and giving them some kind of sense of control over their life and experiences with a positive example to model. But what if it won't diffuse? We're often presented with the confusion and anger of our children as they feel grief and loss in their lives. We're supposed to be those safe people to process and learn and understand all of these feelings. Most of the time, we don't understand these feelings in ourselves, which adds to the level of difficulty when trying to help our children understand them. And sometimes our children challenge our authority or the boundaries that authority represents. Bedtimes, TV shows, junk foods or dietary habits, brushing teeth or showering, cleaning bedrooms or doing their part with their own age-appropriate chores. And sometimes our children challenge our boundaries around deciding what is appropriate or required information to share with them. This shouldn't be surprising because kids are smart enough and naturally curious. They know when things don't make sense and when information is missing for them to make sense of. As adults, we do as well, and we've learned to ignore what makes sense or what makes us ask for the answers we need to make sense of a situation. We accept what we are told, but children don't. They expect answers, and if you omit the truth, you'll lose their trust and shake their foundation of security and safety. So how do we negotiate this? Well, we're going to revisit that safe space agreement. What are the existing boundaries? And are we still in agreement with them? If so, redirect to the right now. And if not, if we're not all in agreement with these boundaries, why not? What do we disagree with and why? What need is not being met, and how can we adjust the boundaries so we are all in agreement with them again? With all of that said, Andrea, can you explain a little bit about what age appropriate means first before we begin? What types of behaviors would come up that show undermining the other parent or you from the other parent? And what kind of behaviors should we avoid so we don't model those undermining in our own relationships?
Well, first of all, we need to understand that what we are calling parental alienation is actually psychological abuse. So the children are being abused, they're being emotionally abused. And what we're seeing is the alienation. That's the part that is in front of us that we can see. So we have to make sure that when we are dealing with children who are abused, we deal with the underlying issue, and also we treat them with compassion and care, and we treat the children the same way we would treat them if they endured any other type of psychological abuse, meaning we protect them, we look at them as a whole, we try to understand their reality, we create boundaries, but also we need to be careful that we don't jump into the alienation, because if we do, we will perpetuate it. When our authority is undermined, when the protective parent is undermined, that prevents that parent from helping the child to develop normally. So undermining authority looks like being canceled. It's when the children are removed from proximity. So the children can be isolated from their family, familiarity, community. When the abuser places themselves as the center, the children are anchored by only the abuser, and they may have impaired relationships, even with siblings. Unspoken feeling to kids that if they mention or seek or miss you, they're bad and they risk rejection, and their needs will not be met. You can be undermined when the child is directly told that you or anything affiliated with you is bad or wrong. It's when you're left out of all communications regarding the child, isolating the protective parent from the child's education, growth, development, future, and the child itself. One thing that's important to know is that an abuser will always create a fake but cohesive, happy family persona in public. When in private, each person exists in relation to the abuser, but is separate from other members. It must be noted that there is no actual family aside from when public is around. This false persona and getting the children to participate shows the public a fake family that is dysfunctional and abusive behind closed doors. And it's unnerving and scary for the children who are seeing that the abuser has the ability to trick everyone and therefore is all powerful. The fake family happens when the duo persona abuser creates this very false public scenario in which the child exists. This is gaslighting the child and the public. Psychological abuse, this is psychological abuse, and it harms the child in that moment and in the future. By making the abuser the only center, the only thing that matters, the child becomes isolated and pitted against everyone else around him or her. Kids fend for themselves and they're pitted against one another. Some receive special treatment, some are completely ignored. Not only are the children alienated from the protective parent, but by destroying their sibling bond and isolating them even more from one another, they become disassociated and eventually lose any sense of family at all. Siblings develop an every man for himself mentality, fighting one another for the scarce food, attention, and resources. Children are told their scarcity due to the protective parent who caused all of the hardships. Siblings internalize that the deprivation of attention and even their basic needs are caused by the protective parent. They internalize that the protective parent tore their world apart, leaving them completely isolated. The abuser plays the role of victim and parentifies the child, and the child's further resentful toward the protective parent for destabilizing them. So this psychological abuse, alienation, takes place on many different levels, and it's perpetuated by the isolation. As the protective parent providing a safe space, we need to pull the child back into a relationship with us, but we need to take into account that they will have trust issues, that they will demonstrate that they are alienated, they will have stopped developing or have stunted development when the isolation started, and we need to be with them where they are. Children are taught to fight, disrespect, distrust, and compete against siblings. And this is directly and indirectly caused by the abuser. It's not only the authority of the protective parent that's undermined, but the stability of family, siblings, relationships, community. Abusers isolate, which often entails shifting locations, schools, housing, isolating from teams, extended family, and any other close bond. Children are anchored only to the abuser and therefore develop a stronger need to impress the abuser. And the abuser uses this to undermine the parent. So as a protective parent, we need to be very careful not to collapse the child's defense mechanisms. When we're certain that we are only parenting and not participating in the delusion, in the duo persona, in the imaginary land the abuser created, we need to be certain that we are providing safety. If we try to correct the lies, or we go against this world that is isolating the child, we risk the child falling apart. The child needs this right now. So instead of knocking it down or providing the truth, we need to provide an alternative. That is the safe space. Abusers place their values or lack thereof onto the children. And as the children develop or fail to develop, the protective parents' dreams of healthy children is demolished, or that's what it looks like. We need, as protective parents, to overlook this. We need to not buy into or believe, my child got ruined, my child is this, my child hates me. We cannot participate. We need to stick to our core values. We need to adjust. We need to be flexible. To stand strong in your values, your goals, and not, the protective parent needs to stand strong in your values, your goals, and do not be railroaded by the chaos the abuser causes. You need to remind yourself that the child is being psychologically abused. Treat the child the way you would treat a child who's being abused. Well, this is tricky because in this case, the child acts out against the alienated parent. It is not personal to you. The child is suffering. Deal with the child and manage yourself later. When a child breaks a leg, we heal the leg. We do not spend our time focused on the fact that the child does not like the crutches or get caught in any of that. We do whatever it takes to heal the broken leg. The talk about the cast or the crutches is secondary to healing the leg. Parental alienation is secondary to the child experiencing psychological abuse. Or to say that clearly, if a child says, like, I don't want to be with you because you're an alcoholic, and that's not true, that statement is secondary to the child being in an environment where they're receiving this negative information, where they are being psychologically abused. So we don't respond to that. We take it into account, but it's not something that we deal with. We're the ones that set up our parenting. We create a safe space. By being intentional with your time, including your thinking, by staying on your own schedule and aspiring toward your goals and staying close to your inner light or your conscience, or if you're religious, God or your spirituality and ethics, you don't get sucked in to the ongoing disruption caused by the abuser. Children feel safe and secure in your calm, even and unyielding ethics. This is never achieved by arguing against the abuser or pointing out that they're wrong and do things intentionally to sabotage the child or parent, but it's achieved by you being you. Since the abuser teaches stonewalling, name-calling, explosions, and dysregulated emotions, you provide the safe environment in which children are treated with respect, stability, and they are nurtured and encouraged to be part of a family and exist in a community, and they're no longer isolated. By modeling the behaviors and ethics that we value, even if the children are chaotic and not acting the way that we remember them to, or the way that we think a child that age should act, we give them the light and inspiration and belief that another way of being exists and that it is safe. We will have to do this over and over again. Children are watching and seeing that we are able to discuss feelings, listen to them, and that we do not switch the roles by asking them to parent us. This is why it is so important to stay out of the story, give them a shelter from the battle. Instead of being upset that they don't have good manners or sit politely at the table, show them how to be. And keep in mind, they might be a teenager and you may be showing them what you believe you showed them when they were 8. And that's fine. Do it again. Keep doing it. Use neutral language. Note what needs to be on the safe space agreement. For example, when we are together, we sit together at the table for meals. There's enough for everyone, and there's even more food. If you go into the negativity, or you meet them in the place that you don't want them to be in, that is painful for them, then the protective parent is making it worse. And the abuser has successfully undermined you, as this is what he wants. He's actively doing everything possible to disrupt the kids and sabotage your desire for the kids to be decent and normal and healthy and have every opportunity in life. This also enables him not to parent and not to be present or model anything while blaming you. None of this is a children's responsibility. Deal with your own feelings of sadness that the children have taken on these traits which undermine you, and be present and provide what you do want, starting with you. Give yourself time to document what was problematic. Write down your feelings. Keep these feelings, keep your writing away from the kids. This is something you do in your own time.
Mhm.
You must use the tool of separate your feelings from the situation. Do not react to the maladaptive behavior with your feelings about how horrible it is that your grown kids are acting a certain way. Address only what is required at that time. Be prepared to replace the negative with consistent positives. State your expectations clearly. Don't get into a struggle. Go slowly. You will not correct everything at once. Provide a peaceful experience and point out the positive. Show the children that making a change or an adjustment requires cooperation and comes from a place of love.
Mhm.
There doesn't have there, you're taking kids who haven't had that experience. Show them there doesn't have to be anger, swearing, threats, crying, throwing things. You don't have to have any of that. You can make an adjustment together.
And
You
safely.
can, yes.
Sorry.
So what you're doing is you're replacing the negative with your expectations and validating their concerns, and you're showing them what you're willing to do for their concerns. That's positive wording, right? We're identifying, where are they? They seem to think there won't be enough. Okay, let's deal with it. You want them to make a change? You need to be the tool that gets them to the next place. Your strategy is to show the kids what you do want and what is more comfortable for them, what is adaptive for them. Go slowly and do not expect perfection. The kids are not going to do things the way that you taught them. You need to separate your feelings from the situation. Do not react to the maladaptive behavior with your feelings about how horrible it is that your grown kids are acting uncivilized. Address only what is required at the time. Be prepared to replace the negative with consistent positives. State your expectations clearly. Do not get into a struggle. Go slowly. You will not correct everything at once. Provide a peaceful experience. Point out the positive. If we react to that negatively, then in our heart of hearts, we know we're not helping them. It's just a negative commentary, and it's negative commentary that's like throwing a rock at this false reality they live in, right? And the other parent allows it. The other parent facilitates it. The other parent, it's fine. That's what the abuser created. So we don't want to get into that back and forth. Instead, we see it. It doesn't look nice on many levels. Well, we have to be the tool to provide them help, assistance, and a choice. And they will never do more than we do. So if we start becoming unregulated, being critical, saying things that aren't helpful, getting emotional, and jumping into the tug of war, then that's what they'll do. But that's not what we want for them. We want them to feel safe. We have to say, you know what? They may not have table manners. That might take 3 years for them to have that. It doesn't matter. That's not the goal. The goal isn't table manners. We need to know, what are our goals, our parenting goals. What are they? And we get to pick a few of the most important ones, and everything else, it's okay. We have to let it go. We can't do everything at once.
We have to remember too that we may be responding to these behaviors we're seeing in our kids or in these children we love, but that's going on inside of us. They're not processing the world the same way. They're not feeling the things that we are. And when we get upset at them for behaving a certain way based on this false reality that's been created for them, we're putting that weight that we're feeling, that discomfort we're feeling, and we're saying it's okay to put it on top of them so we feel better, because that's all that addressing the bad behavior does, is put that weight onto them because we don't have any way to deal with it.
Right. And then we are parentifying them as much as the abuser did. I mean, I know that we're not doing it intentionally, and we might think we have the best of intentions, but really it is parentification.
Yeah.
If they're meeting our need for us, if they're meeting our need because we don't like being called certain names or being disrespected, or we don't like having children who look bad at the table. That's all about us. So we have to dig very deeply to determine what are our goals. And it will be different for every person. We all have different values. We come from different cultures, places, backgrounds. For everyone, it will be different, but it will never be helpful. And it will always be parentification to jump in and try and take down that isolation.
That's right.
We pave the way with a safe space by being what we would like them to be.
Yeah.
Replace the negative with your expectations and validate their concerns. Ask them about it. You're eating very quickly. How come? If they say, I don't know, well, just leave it. You don't need to probe. Be with them where they are. Be the change you wish to see in them. If they say, well, daddy lets us eat with our hands and grab food off each other's plates, your response is, okay, I understand. I can see that. We do things differently here. At our house, we're going to eat off only our own plate with a fork and move on. And this shouldn't be the first time they're hearing your expectations. Before you even are at a table, you're talking about what the expectations are. So it's fair. Set them up for success. Don't lecture them. You've already sat down with them somewhere before you sat down at the table. You had a conversation about boundaries or a safe space agreement. You can give them a gentle reminder before they go to the table. Every experience is one in which you can have a positive experience and a learning outcome. Focus on what you want and acknowledge that it's different. Let them tell you how things are at the other place. Tell them what you expect right now. They're looking at your reactions. Stay calm, stay in the joy of being with them. Do not let the intrusion of the bad programming disrupt your joy. You are strong enough to love them and be with them. They are showing you the chaos and sabotage that they live in. Don't make it invisible. Give them an alternative that is peaceful and pleasant, even if they don't like it at first. Don't get into struggles and do not ask to change everything. If a child says, I'm not supposed to tell you the names of my friends or coaches or teachers, don't correct it. The child's telling you that they are confused and potentially conflicted and sad. They're telling you that they are not comfortable and that it hurts them. As a protective parent, you need to ask open-ended questions. Encourage them to share more, but don't probe or push them. They are saying to you, I'm confused, I'm sad, and I'm scared because many adults are canceling you, mommy, and I'm scared because it's all around me. I'm not even allowed to have a relationship with you. And if I do, I risk not having my basic needs met. Let them talk. Be strong. Don't be emotional. This is not your time. Separate out parenting from your feelings and your process. Your process and their process are not the same. It's their time. When you are with them, you must parent. And that means that you meet their emotional needs. If you say, oh, you should always tell me who your coaches are and your teachers. You should do that. You shouldn't cancel me, or you shouldn't feel afraid. Well, they do feel afraid. And that statement is about what I just said. It's about me, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. I don't matter right now. I will deal with that separately. I will document that separately. But right now, if I interject with my stuff, I abruptly halt that child from opening up.
So what I'm hearing is the unhealthy parent or the toxic parent is an anchor for the child's distorted world.
Yes.
And they need that. We can't remove that distorted world because they need that. That's actually all they know right now.
Yes.
And the only safety we can provide to them is through giving them a picture like they would watch on TV, a movie of what is healthy and solid and upright. in order to emulate that, to feel comfortable, recognize it's out there. It's real. I can see it. I see my mom and somebody I love and trust. I can see she's consistent, or dad or whoever. They're consistent. I know this is okay. I'm going to begin to emulate that and align more with these more comfortable, more safe behaviors because they're predictable and I know what's going to happen.
That's right. And also, if mom is regulated, right? Like if the abuser is saying like mom is crazy and unstable and an alcoholic and kid, you know, doesn't have a job, and then the child sees mom is regulated and peaceful and
The
pleasant,
opposite.
right?
Yeah.
That is what corrects what the abuser said. Words make it worse. The child has to see it because the child's living in this distorted reality, but it is their reality. We can't take reality away from a child, but we can extend their reality by giving them a different option.
I'm really looking forward to next week's video at this point. I think everything, all of the information has really blended into each other really well. What I'm hearing from what you're saying is, I see you. The child hears and sees from your behavior. I see you. I see you, and you have space here. And I keep hearing that in the words you're using. So as a child, for my own children, that's what I would have needed, right? So let's teach that. That's all.